would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Gundungurra land, and people. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which you, our listeners, are joining us from today. I recognise the deep connection that First Nations people have to this land, their enduring culture, and their commitment to the preservation and care for their country. This land was never ceded, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Beyond the Surface. This is a space for conversations that sit at the edges of faith, identity, power, and recovery, especially for those of us who have been shaped, stretched, or harmed by fundamental religion or high control systems. Some episodes are personal, some are reflective, some are educational or curious, or quietly disruptive. All of them are grounded in lived experience and a deep respect for the complexity of leaving, questioning, and rebuilding meaning. We will be talking about religious trauma, various forms of abuse, cult dynamics, queerness, and recovery, not in neat answers, but in honest conversations. In listening to these conversations, some parts might be heavy or activating for you. Please take care of yourself while listening and feel free to pause or step away if you need to. I'm Sam, and I'm really glad that you're here with us. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Sam. I am so tickle pink being here.
I'm so glad to have you here. I feel like Aaron Kelly is going to get a name for himself, starting to like pimp people out to my podcast,
Mhm.
which, to be fair, I think he would just absolutely love, which is totally fine.
It's all in the name, Pastor Aaron Kelly.
Yes,
He is bringing us together still.
still connecting people. Where in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in Robe, South Australia. I am
Oh,
in the most divine location. Well, I've been in a couple of divine locations recently, but this one is particularly amazing. I'm literally out of my motorhome, which I've moved into in August.
oh, I love
I
that.
have about 180 degrees of the Southern Ocean right at my doorstep. A pod of dolphins just passed, and the Irish family next to me absolutely lost their minds. It was amazing. So yeah, I'm on my way to continue the lap of Australia this year,
Oh my
and
goodness.
we might get into all of the things that have changed in the last 12 months, but this has been the monumental one. And so
Oh,
I'm in Robe. I just was in regional Victoria. I'm now headed to Adelaide and then Margaret River and then um, Western Australia for most of the year.
well, I mean, that all just sounds very lovely and rude, Andrew. Like, I'm just like stuck in like boring little windy Goulburn and with my neighbour's car revving outside and pods of dolphins.
It's so ridiculous. And like to have found myself at 41 in the current sort of capacity to make these sorts of choices. Um, like, oh God, I just, as a younger person, I could not imagine being
Yeah.
able to say to you what I just said, where I
Yeah.
am and how I am.
And
It's
for everybody
ridiculous.
listening, they're going to work out why very soon. So I start these
Yes.
episodes with like a big, vague question because I everybody's story starts in like a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So where does your story start?
Oh gosh, I love that question. It starts in my parents' walk-in wardrobe when I was 5.
That is unlike any response I have ever heard. Why in your parents' walk-in wardrobe?
I had spotted a blue gingham skirt as a 5-year-old and I was
Yeah.
fixated with it, obviously.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the wardrobe. I obviously had conspired to get in there, and I remember closing the sliding uh, wardrobe door and like quietly so no one could hear me. And I pulled up the gingham skirt and I just started to swish. I
Oh,
obviously had this this knowledge, this feeling that this was the sort of thing that I wanted to do for some reason. And I was fucking 5. And um I was, of course, caught, but mum was gracious. That wasn't very foretelling of a lot of graciousness from her about my sexuality later on. But um, yeah, that's where life started. And in many ways, this queer little kid began their story in that
Mm,
transgressive act, of
mm,
doing something that should not have been done. And I suppose whatever happened after that has always been a reaction between those desires, they're not even desires, they're impressions, they're moves inside of us, aren't they? They become desires out in the world, but
mm.
in those moments, it's just doing what feels good. And I suppose I've been trying to do what feels good ever since, and took some really wrong turns, and then clearly have taken some really right ones to make you really fucking jealous today.
I mean, it's so interesting, and well, like I'm sure we'll get into it, but my instinct is to always be like, I don't even look back at some of the like quote unquote wrong turns that I took as wrong anymore, but like it's a
Sure,
weird dynamic.
sure.
But my instinct hearing you tell that story was, oh my gosh, what sort of family is going to like, are you in at this point? How is that sort of like putting the skirt on, swishing around, going to land with the people around you?
Well, I think that that moment must have been maybe secretized by mum for so long until it was funny,
Right.
and until we could jest about it. But the family that I grew up in was, a family of the late 80s, early 90s. We always had the mood that we were poor, but really we weren't. We were kind of climbing the middle class ladder to some, what I think is quite wealthy,
Yeah.
um, but you know, we didn't have everything that we probably wanted, but did mum and dad work damn hard at making that possible? Abso-fucking-lutely, they did. And so yeah, that family setup was just so typical white middle class Australian. And I reflected on this only last year. It's like, what would it have been like to be bringing up a queer kid in a very straight world? And I wonder about the echo effect of the AIDS epidemic at that time and its role in creating sort of a dislodgement that this queer kid is a puzzle, like, and not a really great puzzle to solve. Like, this is actually hurting us to have to help this kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, no one knew what to do in many ways. And, you know, it's fascinating to me to then reflect on that sort of fear-based homophobia that
Mm.
probably was a part of the backdrop, right, of
Yeah.
my upbringing. And in many ways, I was left the fuck alone to figure it all out. And really, quite harrowingly, some really tough experiences I had to kind of handle
Yeah.
just by my own some.
Did you grow up in a religious household?
No.
I love when I was like, you're talking and I'm going, oh my gosh, he hasn't mentioned religion yet. Because I didn't either. And I meet so few people who like
Mm.
chose, I call it like I chose to get on this roller coaster of like religion at some point. But
Yeah.
like you weren't mentioning it. And so I was like, oh, okay,
No,
maybe not religion.
they were not religious almost at all, and almost like a
Yeah.
reaction against the religion of their parents. But in many ways, like dad was more like an atheist than
Mm,
religious, and mum was sort of like, oh God, yeah, her mum and dad were quite, uniting church
yeah.
focused. But no, absolutely not. I think from 5 to 13, what happened is the world sort of showed up continually not accepting how and who I was in the world. And so the worst decision my mum could have ever made was moving me from year 3 to a new school. From year 2 to year 3 to a new school where I had all of my girlfriends. I had, the fairy play dates. I had all of the stuff that I needed as a queer little kid to thrive. And then she plucked me out of that school. We were only moving 15 minutes down the fucking road. Sandra, she picks me up out of one school and puts me in another. Of course, today she would have made this decision differently, right? But
Yes.
she
Yeah.
didn't know what she was doing. What she did actually was just completely fracture my social setup. And I was the queer little kid being run away from by other boys. I couldn't find my groove with the girls because I was a boy. It was all very confusing.
Yeah.
And it was a fuck fight. It was a terrible time. And then puberty hit and, high school hit. And I was like, oh, this is just foundationally an awful life. And then we moved into an estate. That middle class family had made it, and we had built a brand new home. And two doors down was a person that went to Hillsong Church.
Of course there was.
And that beautiful family really invited me to go with their son, who was a similar age to me, to summer camp.
Yeah.
And I went into what I now describe as a full-blown indoctrination camp, where 7 days you're completely isolated. You're in the dark with the Holy Spirit more times than you're out.
Yep.
And yeah, I didn't look back because like I put myself in that 13-year-old kid, like this has been awful. Oh, what? There's like Jesus who's going to save me and he can enter a room and flatten me on my back. Oh my God, this is amazing. And I didn't get bullied or run away from once. And I
Yeah.
was held and completely loved, just as I am, because in many ways I don't think we never saw queer people. Of course, there's so many in the church, right? But we
Yeah.
never saw them as queer. We just saw them as, I don't know, a straight person loved by Jesus, I suppose. Anyway, maybe you could tell me a bit more about that. So yeah, and at 13, what else am I going to do?
Yep.
So I, s-
Absolutely.
so I spent from 13 to 21 in Hillsong Church, and I got every star, every tick in the box, every award for being the best Hillsong church member ever.
Mhm.
And you can ask me more about that, but I did. I got the badges. I got all of them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I like hearing you say that because I wasn't 100% sure on how old you were when you went to Hillsong. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, so like I joined the church that I ended up a part of when I was 12. And I talk about it in a similar way in the sense of like, why else would why would a kid leave that? Like you receive like complete belonging automatically, like this like manufactured form of belonging that we know now, but at the time as a teenager it feels really really fucking good. Why would you ever leave that? Why would you ever think that there was anything wrong with that? um how do you, okay, I'm gonna ask a dual question because I feel like it might shift, which is like, what did you think of summer camp while you were in it, and how do you look back on it now? Because I imagine they're quite different.
Well, in it, God, I was so numb, so numb. I I would have look. I look back and I remember moments of sitting on someone's bed
Mm.
and us all being together and talking and having a conversation, and me going, this is the first time I've actually been in a sort of peer conversation that felt safe.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I would have just been so caught up in the ecstasy of that. Plus, 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 plus. Like, what do you mean there's music in a band? Like, could I be a part of that? Like, could I do that? It turns out I could, in a really big way. But yeah, how I look back at it now as an all-encompassing nervous system overload.
Yeah.
And so I think what I now, if I put my therapeutic lens on, I go and everything I've learned about the nervous system, like, oh, that's a nervous system headed towards collapse, like so much activation that we're headed to collapse. But with a hijacking of all of those social networks inside of our nervous systems that really enrich the human experience as well. And so it's a real manipulation, isn't it? Because I say this in the book that you so generously read that I wrote last year, but I the it took me so long to recognize that belonging didn't have to come with a rule book.
Yeah.
And it's the rule book that allows all of those parts of our nervous system to be activated in those ways, but it comes with a lot of fine print that isn't really fit for human consumption.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's how I look back at it. It's a complete befuddlement because you're basically hijacking the nervous system to feel safe by overwhelming it and
Yeah.
then returning it back to safety. What a fucking mind fuck. Oh my God.
Yes, absolutely. And like spiritually loaded fine print, which I think just hits really differently than any other kind of fine print because it attempts to get to the core of who you are as a human, and talks about things not just in this life, but the potential next life. So the weightiness of all of that fine print is so, so heavy. In terms of like, so coming from like, it's always really funny when I go to say what I'm about to say because no one else uses this language other than former church people, which is like coming from a secular family. Um, what did you think about all of the religious side of things? Like, what did you think about Jesus and the language of the Holy Spirit and like speaking in tongues and falling over? Like, you went into like the height of a Pentecostal space.
Yeah, I just accepted it.
Yeah.
Like I was so desperate. Like you give a dry sponge that's torn in half some water. What like that's just oh okay, it's this plus this. Okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I think, how it must have been looked at by me at that time is like, well, Nan goes to church, but she went to like Uniting Church. Um, and then Mum has said recently she spoke to Nan and checked if it was okay, and Nan checked with her people, and it was all fine. It was better than not being in church. And so I just accepted it. But it's funny when you ask that question, I think about like I was a really great Christian. Like I got all the badges on one hand, but then I was a really bad Christian on the other hand because I never really invited anyone to church.
That
like,
is very bad of you.
like I never really wanted people to be a part of it. I didn't,
Ow.
there was a big part of me that was like, yeah, this is good to get all of the things that you're getting, but actually at the end of the day, there's probably something structurally really unsound about this. And I
Mm.
wonder if I was just holding that down and I didn't invite people aggressively to church. I think maybe I had like one person invited to church and it was never clocked. I don't know. I was just busy doing everything else, than inviting people to church. How could I invite someone to church if I'm like singing or leading the choir? Like I can't, I'm busy. She's busy. She's
Did anyone
busy.
pull you up on that though? Because like Hillsong's big on evangelism and like
No,
bringing the numbers in.
now I'm saying it. I'm like, I was busy. I was busy. I was doing
You-
everything else. I promise. No one was clocking this. No one was clocking this. Like down to the fact that I was like a really bad tither, and I was like, I convinced
Oh,
myself because I was so. I know. I'm telling you, I had all these badges, but I didn't have the other badges. I
yeah.
promise. But there must have been like just a fundamental disease with what was happening, and yeah, like was I ever always fully in? No. Did it look like I was? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
all in.
Oh, I mean, what did, amongst all of this all in, like,
Hmm.
what is the language within yourself around your queerness throughout all this?
Black box of
Okay.
nothing.
Yeah.
So when I sort of got through 13, 14, 15, um, that was like this other thing that happened. My sexuality was over sexualized.
Mm.
And it literally occurred in a black box of time, but also within me, it was completely compartmentalized. And so my whole sexuality, I didn't see myself as a sexual person.
Mm.
And yeah, it was just completely in a nuclear waste box. And for so many, many years, that was the case. And my sexuality then emerged in the dark hour of the night, right? Doing very naughty things online. And then it would ricochet back and go, I will never do this again. The blood of Christ on me. Please heal me. Take this away from me. And this big black box was only ever opened up to never be opened again, every single time.
Yeah.
And that would have happened for years on years on years where it wasn't a splitting down the middle. It was like my sexuality was over here in a tiny little box. Um, but that was split from me, most definitely. And throughout my church time, I had, girlfriends. I had like one or two girlfriends in all of those years. I made out with one person, and nothing else. And then I found out, after all these years, there was all this gay sex happening in fucking Hillsong Church, and I wasn't a part of it. Um,
There's
I
so
love.
much underground sex happening in churches.
Oh my God, the bloody. Anyway, the Bible College. Hello. But that is also how everything came crumbling down. In the end, it was
Right.
because I, I, I would imagine a queer person asked me if I was in love with them, and I was like, I don't know how that would work. Like, I just don't know how that would work. They were in love with me, and I did not know how to function, and that is what exploded everything
Yeah.
because I could not compute it. I did not understand it. Even though this is happening in a black box over here, when this person said this to me, they were really dramatic. They said, "You've got to pull over the car." I was driving them home. I was like, "Okay, what?" And then they said, "I'm in love with you, and I think you're in love with me too." I was like, that's not possible. Like, it's just not possible. This is not possible. Um, and that's what began the whole disclosure process to Hillsong, and all fucking hell broke loose.
I bet. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, up until that point, obviously, like you're going through like what just sounds like, a typical like queer kid in a high control system shame cycle of like around their queerness.
Hmm.
But was it something within you that could be healed, or was it something within you that you had to suffer through? Or was it neither of those things because it was so separate to you?
Oh, so separate. And it was neither of those things.
Okay.
It was neither because that was nuclear. Like
Yeah.
if that ever came out of that box, it would decimate everything. And so it wasn't even a something to be healed. It was not a something to do anything. It was a something to be like buried and ignored because it's so radioactive.
Like Pandora's box,
Oh, it's yeah, but
but worse.
yeah, it's like it's way worse. And every time it opened, it was killing me,
Yeah.
And so maybe I could get healed, but that couldn't be healed because every time I opened it, I was left damaged.
Hmm.
Then I would invite that healing in, but
Yeah.
that was never touching that box. Like that box was unhealable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to ask this question because I ask like a flipped version of it later in the episode usually, which is like during your time there, who was God to you? What was your relationship with whoever God was at the time?
Oh God, it's such a complex answer because I want to answer it from now. Like
Yeah,
I want to
we'll
kind
get
of,
to that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I'll hold back. I'll hold back. Um,
We want to try, we're showing progression, Andrew.
who was God to me? I love this. Who was God to me then was this hard to grasp
Mm.
universal energy that was directing us all in my life,
Yeah,
but a really hard to grasp entity that I knew at the time felt so embodied.
yeah,
Like it felt like God did feel like it was in me.
right. That's very interesting. Because usually by and large the responses that I hear both like in these episodes and in people that I work with and even in my own story is that the space that we were all a part of was so pivotal in disconnecting us from our body. To sort of hear you say that it was an embodied experience is very interesting.
Hmm. Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of my emotional experience was numbed.
Yeah.
So when I turned around at like 22, 23, after a couple of years of being outside of the church, and I was in my first gay relationship and I was sitting in front of a therapist, I could not feel what was happening beneath my neck, but I had to shut all of it off.
Yeah.
So during, it's an embodied version of this Holy Spirit inside of me.
Hmm.
I'm struggling so much not to describe it from today,
Yeah.
but you'll have to keep listening. Um, um, but then beyond the church, the big cataclysm that happened in my world when everything came tumbling down, I then numbed everything.
Yeah,
I
right.
couldn't even listen to music.
Me
I,
neither.
yeah,
Former worship leader, I didn't listen to any music for like 2 years. I couldn't do it.
couldn't listen to music, couldn't feel my body,
Yeah.
couldn't breathe, a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a terrible time after of numbness, but during I was flowing. I was flowing.
I mean, actually, as you talk, I'm thinking if I was having like a Holy Spirit moment, I was probably more in my body, but it had to be
Mhm.
really extreme and intense and overwhelming almost. Like it was an overwhelm of my system.
Yes.
But that then it's not overwhelming, it's just spiritual. It's a spiritual event. So it just like the overwhelm becomes good, not just normal, it becomes good.
Because that singular focus we have in religious settings of the prayer, the moment, the preacher, the body, the spirit, the whatever that is what like modern gurus are talking about when they talk about meditation and presence, right?
Yeah.
It's just as you so expertly named, it's encoded with all the other guff, the other bullshit, the other fine print.
Yes.
Um, but it doesn't take away from the fact that those mechanisms are helpful mechanisms.
Yep.
And for me, it's like that abundance of presence.
Mm.
And then I think those hysteric moments in church services or those hysteric moments of our own healing or redemption, praying demons off my back, all that sort of fucking shit.
Mm.
That is an overwhelmed nervous system,
Yeah.
headed towards collapse.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Mm.
But the majority of that stuff is the stuff that we might want to find our way to doing now.
Yeah.
But for us from religious trauma experiences, that's fucking hard to do
Yeah.
because we have to disembody ourselves to then find that gap between what felt really unsafe around abandonment to then get to a stage in our lives where we can reintegrate those practices again safely
Yeah.
without being full blown fucking activated all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
It's a lot. Um,
it's a lot.
okay, now I might be wrong in my next comment because it's been a while since I listened to your episode on Queerly Made. But I have vague recollection of you talking about you being on the Hillsong Kids album. Is
Well,
or
Aaron was
about to
obsessed.
be.
Aaron
Yeah,
was
because Aaron will just
obsessed.
break out in Hillsong at any moment.
Aaron just loves to activate us all with
I
that
know.
song and those
Oh,
songs. Yeah, so at 13 I saw the band and I was like, I'm gonna be in that band. And so it was another quest, right? It was like I will be saved. I'm already saved actually, because that happened on day one of the bloody camp. My
of
next
course.
quest was like, how can I be in this band? And I did it at every level. Every year I was in the band of some description, all the way to the point where the year before, well, actually 6 months, maybe 3 months before I disclosed my same-sex attraction, I was a backing vocalist on the main Hillsong album. And so that was like, ding, 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 you've got the
That's the
star, you know?
jackpot.
Yeah, it was the jackpot.
Yeah.
And so throughout that time, I was in the founding member group of HK4.
Right.
So Julia Bell tapped me on my shoulder and invited me and some other beautiful people to be a part of HK4. And I was then um, benched, what we used to call benched. It's when someone did
Sports
something
analogy.
naughty. It was when someone did something naughty, we got benched because we were no longer allowed on the stage. And so we knew that they were going through some form of pastoral care intervention. And so I got benched just before the recording of the HK4 album that Aaron loves and adores.
Aaron loves and adores any worship song that he can just belt out at the most inappropriate of times.
It's true, and I'm already clasping my hands thinking about it.
Oh, I won't belt out a Hillsong tune at any moment, that's for sure. That's not happening. Um, okay, so what did you know what you were being benched for at that point? Like, or did that come as a surprise to you?
Oh no, I knew very clearly. So at that time, I was leading the youth choir, singing as a backing vocalist, and then in HK4, and I was quite like I was actually as I am now, right? I there's like photos of me back in the day. I have these like Oakley glasses that I had clear lenses in, and they were silver.
Oh,
Um,
bless.
and I was gayer than Christmas. Like seriously, like I was conducting that choir. Like there's videos of it. Gayer than Christmas. So it's like, come on, like people, like what are we doing? We're all in this myth about my sexuality anyway, but
Yeah.
regardless. So that Bible college student said this. I drove that night to my cell group leader's
Of course.
house.
Yep.
It was like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. And I'm like, this has to be spoken about right now because I've had a bubble burst. That black box
Okay.
is now sitting on my lap
Right.
and it's been opened by this disclosure my neurons are like, I don't understand how this works in this world. Like, what do you mean he loves me? That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Like, what?
Yeah.
Drove to that, then all hell fucking broke loose. And so I knew already by me disclosing this I was going to be benched. Like this was just a part of the process.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from that moment on, everyone was informed. So it goes up the ladder and it went all the way to Darlene Check, who, you know, was the senior pastor of that worship and creative arts team, which is the team that I was in. And it's bloody horrific. So I had a pastor that was assigned to me, and he was checking in on me every 2 days. And, in rereading emails from this pastor, it's like, go to the gym, pray, read the Bible more, blah, blah, blah. Like it's very prescriptive of what I should be doing
Like
to
boot camp style.
ward this off, yeah. And yeah, people like holding my hands and encouraging me to be a man of Christ. And these sentences, being repeated and repeated. At that time, Anthony Van Brown, who is now a very good and dear friend of mine, there he was advocating at that same time to Brian to reduce the use of ex-gay conversion therapy
Mhm.
and camps. And so we kind of lined up the dates that it was like the 6 months before, and then I disclosed my same-sex attraction, and they did not, I think Hillsong did not know what to do with me.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is like the most painful part of this process. Like it would have been painful before because I was benched and then told not to tell anyone. And at the time, I think they were really worried that I was going to have sex with other people. But I was like, I didn't even know sex was happening. And if I did, I don't know what I would have done. I probably
Yeah.
would have run out of the room, to be honest. So at that time, it had to be a secret. I was benched, so everyone knew something was problematic.
Yeah.
Um, shame, 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 shame,
Yeah,
shame.
that's like humiliation, like public humiliation.
And separation, so and a
Yeah.
complete disconnection from your support system.
Yeah.
And so I had not great home-based relationships because they were of the world, not in the
Of
church.
course.
I had distanced myself from school friends and family and all that, and all of my best friends in church I could not tell. And so in this quasi time, they did not know what to do, and so they sent me to a guy in Northmead, and he's a Uniting Church minister. And the worst part of this story is that he specialized in child sex attraction, not same-sex attraction.
Oh my God.
And so he was assessing me for like pedophilia risk when I had not even had sex, let alone any sort of fantasies, and certainly not child sex related, or child sex attracted. And he's assessing me for this, and I'm sitting there in that chair. Can you imagine?
Oh my
I
God.
had no support. I had no one to dialogue this with other than this psychologist, this
Yeah.
Uniting Church minister. And he's assessing me. And I'll never forget, I had this most beautiful dream holding a baby in my hands. And I just loved this kid so much. I was tending to this child. And he's fucking using that as an assessment. And all of these years later, I realized I was holding myself.
Yeah.
I was loving on myself. I was tending to the innocence inside of me, inside of this awful setup, this awful circumstance. And yeah, it is still, I'm 41, I'm a psychotherapist. I have had how many fucking years of therapy? It is so painful to talk about
Yeah.
because it's in those moments where there's parts of me that just were not cared for by others.
Yeah.
They were not looked after. And I didn't really know how to look after them until just maybe 6 years ago, I really learned.
Yeah.
And I've been a therapist for 10. Um, I only really learned how to tend to those parts of me 6 years ago. And fuck, that's fucked. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I hold some really healthy anger and rage about this process too, because I wasn't connected. This psychologist didn't then go, oh, he did in the end say, clearly not child sex attracted, clearly just same sex attracted. Okay, I need to counsel him out of Hillsong. And he did. And he started that process of ideating. But fuck him. Where was his referral to a queer-based
Yeah.
organization? Where was his referral to a community group that I could actually talk to? There was none of that. None of that. And so I'm very angry and still angry at him.
Absolutely. I mean, I think like hearing you talk about it, like, I mean, I'm angry for you. But my one of the biggest things that I notice, like there's so much language around how queer people are spoken about in religious spaces
Mm.
and not just in religious spaces, but in anywhere that would adopt conversion-based ideology or suppression-based ideology. And I
Mm.
think from the conversations that I've had with people, there is none more harmful than the idea that queer people are predators.
Oh,
Like, there is one thing to believe that there is something broken or like sinful or something like that's harmful as it is, but to think that a natural identity and attraction, it makes someone predatory, is
mm.
just the most disgusting and harmful perception, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And look, a lot of people who are predators have been predated on as well.
Yeah.
And, they're the walking wounded also.
Yeah.
And in many ways, this psychologist was trying to help this community of people who had found themselves in this place in their lives.
Yeah.
Um, it just so happens it wasn't this one, and it irrevoc irrevocably fucking harmed me. It really
Yeah.
fucked me for so many years where I I held that link up, and it was such a harmful link up because yeah, it does see same-sex attraction at that same level of harm. And we know it's not. We
Yeah.
know it's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
What was it like to leave the space that you had just spent like nearly a decade in?
Oh, it was so jarring. And I read back the emails that I wrote everyone because, like, I had to actually take the path of understanding it through scripture first. This is like
Didn't we all?
so, oh my God. Isn't that amazing? It's like
Yeah.
I need to understand this through a scriptural lens, and
Yeah.
the email has all the quotes that I needed to deliver. And the like, I think it was one thing leaving that space. It was another thing when I actually ended up saying, "Hey, team, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this in this way." Then their decision to not talk to me ever again. The most ungodly, unchristian-like decision, which was they all had dinner. They had a dinner party,
Oh,
and their decision collectively was not to speak to me again.
oh my
And
goodness.
it's like, oh my God, that is just not what the Bible says at all. And so I think when I realized that that had happened,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, these people aren't good.
It's
Like,
cruel.
they're actually not good. And so it was
Yeah.
really easy to get out. And it was really easy to have had made that decision because I was like, this is really nasty, actually.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but what an upheaval, what a big upheaval. Because at that time there was many different moments of upheaval. My uncle died on our living room floor. Dad is like lost his best mate. His wife then says the only possible answer to all of this tumult is for you, Andrew. You tonight have to come out to your parents.
Oh my gosh.
I know. She goes, life's too short. Uncle Keith knew that you were gay. I know you're gay. You need to be honest about it. And this was a week after my dad just lost his best mate. So all of this was happening around a time where it was really chaotic, and mum and dad lost their shit, when I came out. And so I had this secular family
Yeah.
also abandoning me at the same time emotionally,
Yeah.
and not for too long, but for enough, a few screaming matches and some awful experiences with me and them. I had fucking no one.
Yeah.
And it rendered me to be incredibly self-reliant. It rendered me with the type of strength I have now,
Mm.
to go, well, I can get through fucking anything. Anything is fucking possible now. Oh my God, that's a fucking Hillsong line.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
isn't that like an album name?
I think it's something like that.
Anyway, I think it's the first album I ever went to. But anything is possible. And I think this is what I got to on the
Oh.
Queerfully podcast is
Yeah.
like, I'm actually in the promise now as a queer person. I'm in everything that the church convinced us we could get in Christ,
Yeah.
but I'm in it. And I have a bit of gay sex, and
I would hope
and
so,
and
Andrew.
and I, I don't read the Bible, and I'm not subscribing to all these rules, and I'm in the promise now.
Mm.
Anything is literally possible in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm privileged to be able to say that. But yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Fucking true.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm hearing you talk about what happened in the fallout of that and in the fallout of coming out. And the two biggest things that, like,
Mm.
stood out to me is that one, obviously, like you mentioned, like, you had no one, you're alone at, like, the level of isolation. But also, everybody else was determining everything for you. You had no
Mm.
control around, like, when you came out, who you spoke to, who you had relationship with. Everybody else was just making the decisions for you. And so, like, I mean, typically, I think we all kind of know that we don't have a whole lot of autonomy and agency in high control religion anyway.
Mm.
But like, you're on the process out of that, and you still don't have any.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
How did, I mean, and it might have, but I'm sort of asking it as a how did it not, but it might have. Um, how did that not turn into like overcorrecting, hyper independence? I don't need anybody. And I might be using a little bit of lived experience here to ask this question because
I feel
I
like
also had
I feel
no
like
one.
I feel like I should be asking the next question of you. Um, So how did it not? What what
Or
next
did it?
happened? Well,
Yeah.
no, not what next happened is I shut everything fucking down.
Yeah.
And I look back on this, it was only like 5 or 6 years ago that I had my first panic attack
Wow.
and actually could hold what my body was holding and storing on behalf of these experiences from 13 to 21.
Yeah.
I I reckon I pulled out the sexuality of that black box and I put everything else back in it. And so I could have the sexuality and I lived out
Nothing
that,
else.
but I could not deal with this other nuclear waste. So I did this
Yeah.
swap. It's the first time I've ever said that out loud, and I think it's so fucking true. So then I lived a life completely disconnected from the greatest harms.
Yeah.
And I mean my whole experience of queerness in a straight world from 5 to 13, 13 to 21.
Yeah.
Packed it all up. Don't need to deal with it. I'm just going to keep forging ahead. So I lived in a really great way of communicating and a great way of choosing, bits and pieces of my life, but never really there, never really, really richly present. But I never got into drugs. I never got into fucking recklessness. I went straight into a monogamous relationship for 7 years, pretty much, and lived like a straight man. And you don't have to. You might want to see a photo of me when I was 25-ish. Um, I look older than I am now. Like
Yeah.
I am 25 going on 45, close to 50 in this photo. I'm very unwell. I've got stomach issues. I've got autoimmune disease popping up. I've got a whole bunch of different stuff, but fuck, I'm not dealing with that. I'm just living in the here and now.
Yeah.
Messy relationship. It ended. I then had a little break and I went into a 13-year relationship with the person that I've just broken up with last year. Well, we've broken up. We both
Yeah.
decided. Um, so yeah, I just kept going. I kept being productive. I kept learning,
Mm.
and then what I've realized is for a form of reclamation in my life, especially from that moment of having power completely taken away from me in a moment where it should have been handed to me.
Yeah.
Um, I built a practice, private practice as a psychotherapist, all about handing people power back
Yeah.
and restoring their agency in the world.
Because it's so much easier to help other people get it for themselves than to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, but what a selfish selflessness, right? In being able
Yeah.
to say, hey, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to find a way to actually allow that to heal me.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be reciprocal.
Yeah.
And look, yeah, okay, great. I then my body when Brian Houston was rejected from Hillsong Church,
Mm.
the Saturday or it was a Sunday or a Saturday that media report came out, I went into a full-blown meltdown.
Such interesting timing. I want to get to that, but I want to ask a question before that, which is throughout those relationships, like particularly that first 7 years, like at what point, because up until this point, you have always, like, when talking about your sexuality, always had referred to it as like being same-sex attracted. At what point did that change to like I'm gay and like affirming your own sexuality? Like, this is good.
Um, Pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think as soon as you swap that box out and you're like, okay, well, I've done all of those hard things.
Hmm.
I can take what happens at midnight alone on a laptop, and I can now take that and center it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think that just happened really quickly. I don't know if that's strange
Well,
to you,
that's
but
nice.
it just happened really fast.
I
But
mean,
but I think that's just how I am in the world. Like
yeah.
I've always been this way in the world,
Yeah.
alive to the ability to express myself and all of that sort of stuff has always been an ongoing thing. I think I don't know, maybe it's a form of that dislocation that I always had about that belief system. It was always present to me. And then when I
Yeah.
was treated in this way, I'm like, okay, well, all right, I can let that go. And now I can actually just be gay.
Yeah.
But I did gay in a very monogamous, straight way. And that was my
Yes.
cocoon
Yeah.
to make gay okay. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask like how because and I know again I some of my questions when I'm talking to other queer people are a little bit lived experience based,
Uh-huh.
which is like how much of like the heteronormativity from Hillsong, which is a nice alliteration, how much of that went into that first gay relationship
Well,
because
all of it, because I think,
yeah,
well, not even just Hillsong, I think from the straight world around me,
general.
that what's accepted, what's going to be approved of in my family of origin and in my friendships is when I show them I can do this just as well as they can.
Yes, like you're proving a point.
It is a massive proved point,
Yes.
and it was determinedly that. I got engaged to this person.
Yeah.
We had rings on our finger. So yeah, absolutely. It was a proof point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. When you had the panic attack, did
Mm.
you know what you were having a panic attack about? Was it conscious at that point, or did that come a bit later?
Yeah. No, I think it was conscious, but like, of course, when you're in panic, you don't
Yeah.
have the front two parts of your brain.
Yeah.
And so all of that blood flow and neural network has retreated and it's in the moment. So did I at three something in the morning? No.
Yeah.
I knew something was terribly wrong.
Mm.
I knew I wasn't having a medical episode.
Yeah.
And my partner at the time had had a history of panic attacks, over many years. And so they knew exactly what was going on. And straight on my back, I'm here, whoa, like that is all you need in those moments is I'm here.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, did I know? There was an unraveling that had to come because all what I then came to really understand was all of those somatic memories were replaying as if they were happening today. And did I fully clock that at the time? No. But like this is after a long period of time of being in
Yeah.
what a therapy client, a person in therapy, and being our therapist. I kind of knew what was happening, but I don't know, I wore it as a badge of honor that I hadn't had a panic attack in a way. I wore it but what I now know is that that was my incredibly resourceful nervous system containing something until I was really ready to process it. Because if I had done it earlier, I don't think I would have survived. Like I'd never had suicidal ideation or thoughts of suicide in the past, and they came in a flurry beyond that panic attack. And so I wonder what would have happened if I didn't have the sort of nervous system that could have contained it. Um, because I had the capacity then and there to dialogue with these parts of me around why did they think dying was a really great idea right now? It's probably because it feels really shit. Okay, that makes real sense. And thank you for that option,
Yeah.
that idea.
We don't
Um,
love it.
we're not really fans of it. Like the
Yeah.
rest of us are not fans of it. Just letting you know, we've got some other things to live for here.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to be present to that and alive to that. And I had the most amazing clinical supervisor at the time. I
Mm.
had the most amazing opportunity to get more therapy from alternate perspectives. And internal family systems was it. And it was the thing I needed to unpack all of the parts of me that were in boxes and all of the parts of me that needed to be brought back home and held again. Yeah.
Now, I find this always happens when I talk to therapists because you are talking about that like it's the most beautiful picture that you are painting. And I imagine it was not said beautiful picture that you are painting right now. I imagine it was a little bit like the emotional floodgates opening. It was really fucking painful.
Oh, it was the panic of that
Yeah.
was wire being pushed through my rib cage and sewing it up.
Yeah.
And to feel after all these years that a part of me was still down the street in a dark cave,
Mm.
that is so frightening. And I actually had to go and take medication for a period of time. I really needed support because I was completely destabilized. I was completely
Mm.
um, in pain, in the worst pain. It was the pain of being a 5-year-old all the way through to 13 and 13 to 21 of my rejection from church. It was all that pain playing out in real time, like a floodgate had opened. It was fucked.
Yeah.
It was fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the picture I'm imagining. Not the beautiful, like, conversation between our parts, which is lovely, but doesn't
But that's
actually
what,
feel lovely.
but that's where it got to. It did
Yeah.
get to there. And,
Yeah.
you know, in so many ways, my current capacity is built on that fire, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
How was it for you to access some of those boxed away emotions, particularly like around the space that you've come from? Because I know, like, having the language for what was actually experienced is so powerful, not language around like people being like a bit shitty or like a bit mean, but like the actual like indoctrination and the emotional manipulation and like all of the stuff that was happening in that 8 years that you were there. What was it like for you to find language and emotion around that?
Well, it's hard to put words to it
Yeah,
because in many ways, it's the capacity I hold now in my body to be able to be with that pain that is still with me.
yeah,
Like beyond that sort of first phase of the absolute overwhelm of the pain, because everyone else inside of me doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
mm,
There is no containment. There is no tending to, there's no ability to kind of understand where
yeah,
this velocity of stuff is coming from, let alone what to do with it.
yeah,
And it's so risky to feel those things because when we start to feel those things, it really limits our ability to safely share it. And because we don't know who's going to stay
yeah, because
in
everybody
the wealth of
left.
that. Everyone in
Yeah,
the past left. You're
yeah,
so right. Um, so yeah, it's hard to describe it because it's that sheer pain, and then it's that, whoa, okay, what's the scaffold for me to understand that? And I forget the person's name. Oh, you probably know them. Is it Lifton?
oh yeah, Robert J. Lifton, the thought, yeah,
Yes,
thought reform.
The Lifton criteria of
Yes.
high control,
Yes.
high contact. And when my clinical supervisor said, "Oh, have you heard of this framework? You know, this framework that starts with the dynamics of control, mystical
Yeah.
manipulation,
Like
demand for
familial
purity,
control. Yeah.
confession, sacred science, loading the language, doctrine over the person, dispensing of your actual existence and putting it in God, not you."
Yeah.
That's Lifton's criteria, by the way, of a
Yes.
cult. And when I can cerebrally understand that criteria, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is this pain is because of this dynamic. Oh, fuck. Okay. All right. This gives this shape now. This pain, it gives it legitimacy. It
Yeah.
gives it a place inside of me. It doesn't have to be down the street in a cave. I can actually bring that pain home and I can actually integrate it here. And the more and more I've discovered about this is that, the goal of therapy, the goal of healing, the goal of blah, blah, blah isn't actually what the church would say. It's actually, how can we have a relationship with that pain? How can we have a relationship with that grief ongoingly? It's not about transmuting it to allow it to be vanished out of us. It's actually, how do I hold it? And now I know the infrastructure in me and my body that holds that. Um, what a fucking beautiful thing, I don't have to get rid of nothing. I just have
Yeah.
to hold it differently.
Absolutely.
And it's
You say that mu
beautiful.
you say that much more beautifully than I do to my clients, which is we can't exterminate the shit we don't like. Just gotta learn to, I do use the term, we've just gotta learn to hold it differently and to
But
and
learn to hold it differently is one thing, right? And that might be one of the phases. But then what happens when we can beautifully hold our greatest pain?
yeah.
And how not inflamed is it? Like, or for me, a lot of my understanding is what happened inside of my nervous system when I couldn't hold that pain safely. All of the protective instincts that would then activate and trigger off actually felt more unsafe than just holding the pain. It's
Yeah.
like all of those coping strategies and all of those fire alarms that would go off in me rather than, oh, okay, we don't have to actually get rid of this. We get to hold this differently. And now look at the relative safety I can create inside my body. And then the relative safety I can create in the connections with the other humans in my life. Because the majority of my friendships and the majority of my post-church sort of dynamics was, don't worry, I've got this. I need you to need me more than I need you. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to overextend. I'm going to please. I'm going to do. I'm going to deliver. And then you'll stay.
Yes, you talked about this in the
You'll
book,
stay.
right?
I did.
Yes. I think I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that because I think it's something that so many people who have come out of manufactured spaces of belonging are going to relate to quite a bit.
Well, I think when we can't hold the pain
Yeah.
and we don't know how to tend to it ourselves, we're going to get that tended to by others.
Yeah.
And in this way, and this is not in the book, by the way, we're adding to it right now in living form with me and you, Sam. Um, so maybe when we need to get that person to deal with that pain for us because we can't do it for ourselves, we're going to be consequential to them.
Yeah.
We're going to overextend. We're going to delight. We're going to serve.
Mm,
We're going to do all the things the church taught us, right? But we're going to do it in a secular way without God and religion.
yeah.
And when I realized that I routinely created a dynamic where I felt safer
Mm,
when that person needed me more than I needed them, I was like, oh, fuck.
yeah.
I have created a dynamic here to deal with my pain, but to keep me forever connected and not abandoned by these people by being very consequential in their lives.
Yeah.
And that realization, I had to send a lot of compassion to myself
Mm,
because I realized what I had done, what I had created. And it was relationships of com no reciprocation. The other person couldn't even reciprocate because I was there doing everything anyway.
yeah.
They didn't even have room.
Yeah.
And when I started to demand that rebalance, um, I'm now reading a line out of the book, but there was no bounce left in that relationship. It shattered.
Yeah.
And yeah, I still hold grief, deep, deep sadness and pain about that. And although I can orientate it to how I was manhandled, by religion and systems around me,
Mm,
um, at the same time as I'm so grateful that I now can forge partnerships of reciprocity and
yeah.
ease and balance, and I handle my pain so you don't have to,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hold my pain so you don't have to.
Speaking of grief, how
Mm.
do you hold all of that? Because I find that grief is one of the most complex and the thing that lingers the most for a lot of people. It's the most universal with religious trauma and cult survivors is
Mm.
just the enormous amounts of grief, and not just with people, but grief of routines and rituals and rhythms and relationships with the divine and all of that sort of thing. How do you
Mm.
hold your grief now?
Well, look, I think mis the biggest disservice and misjustice, is that a word? Um,
Is now.
that is we are copped is that grief is linear
Yes.
and it has a couple of stages to it. And it's
Mm,
like, no. So that's the first threshold we have to cross, which is this isn't linear. I don't have to dispense of this grief. Um, but I might want to see it in a different way. And the spiral models of grief are way more in alignment with how I have learned to be with grief.
I like the model of grief where it's just a giant scribble. Oh,
Yeah,
that's my
sure.
model of grief.
Well, the spiral is kind of like, yes, there's a lot of hardship in the middle of grief, but as we moving concentric circles around it. We're still clocking it. We're still with it, but it, I don't know, it becomes easier to be with
Yeah.
over time. How do I hold grief right now? I don't know if I'm a master at it, and I don't know if I'd ever master it, but I go into the ocean, right?
Mm,
For many years, I would cry in the shower
yeah.
as water was tumbling over my body going out of the drain.
Yeah.
Um, in many ways, now I have found myself sort of not forcing gratitude, but finding gratitude in my life and purposefully conjuring that up and articulating that as I hold grief. It's interesting that gratitude and grief kind of start the same, don't they? Um, but yeah, it's a really difficult experience because we're being taught that we bury dead things and then we move away from them very quickly.
Yeah.
What is it like for us to honor grief's valuable place in our life?
Yeah.
That our grief can connect us with our great choices, can give
Mm,
us clarity on what's important. It can give us a bit of a rubric or a roadmap for what needs to happen next in our lives. And it's an honor to hold what we have lost access to or what we didn't get need and what we didn't get when we needed it the most. And I just wonder about the different place we hold grief. And for me, I hold it right here, just underneath the bottom of my sternum.
mm,
And it's a felt experience. It's co-located with pain.
mm.
At times it's quite alive inside of me. As I sit here with grief, I just notice all of the other bits and pieces that hold it and tend to it. And um, that feels really safe. It feels really safe in my body right now, to be with it and not have to get rid of it, and then to leverage its energy for what happens next in my life.
Yeah.
That transmuting of grief into not getting rid of it, but moving that energy to what happens next. Not the sort of relationships that are one direction and, unreciprocal that end up not getting my needs met. No, the sorts of moves I can make that are creative and collaborative and beautiful and offer reciprocity in the world. That is how I handle grief now.
Yeah.
Um, it's an active process,
Yeah.
just as much as it's a holding one.
Yeah. And I imagine uh, for people listening who might be going, that sounds lovely, but that also took a lot of work, right? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't just ha magically happen. We're not talking about something that just magically happens overnight. So I always like to just go, if you are listening to someone's experience going, that sounds lovely for you, it's also you're talking about it having gone through the work and continuing to do the work because it's an ongoing process. Yeah.
Ongoing tending. And I'm
Yeah.
41. I left the church at 21.
Yeah.
So high 20 years. Like fuck. 20 years of incredibly dark, dark periods of my life,
Yeah.
as well as really joyous ones. And fucking shameless plug coming up, but
Plug away.
the book, the book, Why
Uh,
Things Feel Fucked, is the last 10 years of my discovery of a roadmap, right?
yeah.
And so, in many ways, if you're sitting there thinking, fuck, that feels so far away from my lived experience, and
Mm.
God, I wouldn't even know where to begin on that, I don't even know how to breathe deep, let alone do what Andrew is describing.
Yeah.
Um, the book might be a good map. It's not a perfect map, but it's a potential map, to at least draw your own path forward. And it has this story woven all the way through it, and the psychotherapy toolkit frameworks that I have used for my own healing, but others have leveraged for theirs. And you might want to pick up the book. It's in audiobook form if you enjoy my voice, you can listen to this voice more, 6 hours of it. If you don't enjoy the voice and you want to go into the diagrams and the illustrations, go to the hard copy book or get the
Yeah.
Kindle version.
Yes.
But that might be a good place to start. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. I love a shameless plug. That's what podcasts are for. Jeez. Okay, I want to ask one more question before I get to what is my final question for all of the episodes, but I want to go back to something we were talking about that you wanted to answer this way the first time round, which is how do you look back on what your relationship with God was at the time, presently, and what is your relationship with spirituality like now?
Well, I look back at that knowing that what that high control culture was inviting me to access was the core of my nervous system.
Yeah.
And what we've discovered is that these are particular neural networks that are regulating safe connection with another human, which unlock everything that's good in the human experience. It unlocks calm, connected, creative, courage, um, a whole bunch of other C words in there as well. It unlocks the capacity for us to be orientated and have all the bits of our brain alive in the same moments. And it is the centering of ourselves. And it's an abundant place. It's actually being discovered as an indefatigable portion of our nervous systems. And if church was promising us anything, it was this. And they just had it around the wrong way.
Yeah.
We actually don't need to believe in anything. We actually don't need to follow any rule books.
Yeah.
We actually just need safe human connection to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's eyeball to eyeball, voice box to voice box. Human to human safety is what creates this access to the ventral vagal complex in our bodies.
Yeah.
And that is the God nerve for me. And I am God. No, I'm joking. um, but God is in me. Like if I look back and I go, well, who was God really? It was me.
Yes.
And I was hard to grasp the God out there because they're actually inside of us. This
Yeah.
powerful force in our nervous systems is actually us.
Yeah.
I'm in jest calling us gods, but it is from that lens, we are the God inside of us, and we have this expansive, creative, compassionate resource inside of us.
Yeah.
It's been annihilated by the world systems,
Mm.
patriarchy, religion, the world of productivity and capitalism has also squashed this. In many ways, it has kept us from ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now spirituality is my infinite sort of capacity inside of me to feel and hold and be with myself. This is presence.
Yeah.
But more and more as I flirt with the world around me, I see it in others. I see it in nature, the natural rhythms of nature. I am, yeah, my whole focus in buying a motorhome after I ended a 13-year relationship last year was I wanted to be nomadic and I wanted to be more connected to nature. And I think when we think about where our nervous systems grew up, they grew up in very different times. They did not have the systems of work, religion, and the industrial complex around us.
Yeah.
They had a really effortless, symbiotic relationship with nature and each other, us. And I am trying to hack that process in a world that's not set up for that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm doing that in a pretty beautiful motorhome. Driving around Australia this year as I have more conversations with people
Yeah.
about their version of why things feel fucked, but also why things now feel calm. Why does it feel better? Why do you have peace on board, and how did you get there is what I think my new religion is. It's like, how do we have that meaningful conversation? And so spirituality is really a safe connection with myself and then with another person
Yeah.
in the context of my connection to nature.
Yeah.
And like, if you had told me that 5 years ago, I'd be like, what the fuck? What a whack, absolutely whack job. But
Uh,
I have to tell you, in all of my journeying through the science and through my own lived experience and alongside other people's experiences, we got to prescribe each other
mm,
safe connection with each other, and we've got to prescribe our access to nature as much as we can,
yeah.
because no one is coming to save us but ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, I lied. I'm gonna ask one other question before I get to my end one because I just remembered when you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to ask that. What would you say to like 13-year-old Andrew who is about to go to summer camp now?
Well, fuck. Oh God. That's a really hard question. Because like there's two impulses. There's one, block the door. Like put your
Mm,
arm across the door and go, what the fuck are you doing?
yeah,
The other impulse is to sit him down and explain to him why he feels the way he does, and it's
yeah,
not his fault. This straight world, like
mm,
imagine if I was with him now, I'd go, look, just let's just get a whiteboard and have a look at what's really going on here,
yeah,
because this setup is not fit for your well-being. But
yeah,
how do you tell that kid in 1997
yeah,
that, how do you do that? And if anyone's listening to our conversation going, God, what Andrew's experiencing is so far away from me, just remember, this is 1997 of your life. This
yeah,
is even the whiteboard won't help just yet.
yeah,
But let's just trust that time and small changes often matters.
yeah,
And it might be a deeper breath today
mm,
before you're in a motorhome circumnavigating Australia.
yeah,
Yes, of course. That's my 20-year history, not yours.
yeah,
But start with the breath.
yeah,
Start with the deeper breath. Start with the safe relationship.
yeah.
Yeah.
You've started answering what my final question
Uh-oh.
always is, so now you can think
Uh-oh.
of something else.
Okay.
Which is, if somebody's listening to this and
Mm,
they're at the beginning of that process of unraveling
yeah.
everything that they've just been through, what would you
Mm.
say to that person?
Well, yeah, definitely what I was just saying. Look, put your hand on where it feels most painful in your body right now.
Mm,
Put your other hand on where it feels less painful,
yeah.
more spacious, and just be present to both.
Mm,
Just be present to both. You don't need to change it. You don't need to replace it. You don't need to shift it. You just be present to both. And then you might want to take some portion of that pain and share it with another person who's safe.
mm,
And for me, that was many different therapists over the last 20 years, right? About three or four.
yeah.
Probably not many. Three or four people.
Uh,
And you don't have to be healed by that therapist. That's not the gig. It's just to start the sharing and the safe
yeah.
transition or translation of that pain to someone else. And it's scary. It feels impossible. It feels like you might cave in or the world might open up and swallow you. Um, Even when it feels impossible, sit there and try anyway to share. Because really, I think, and this is my current hypothesis, the only pathway to healing is through this safe connection with another human being.
Yeah. I don't know how someone would do it without it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm like, I don't actually know what to say to that. So instead, I'm just gonna thank you for your beautiful vulnerability and for sharing so openly and for being here with me.
Well, look at us. We get to sit and connect. We
Yeah.
have no idea who each other are in the world, and
Yeah.
we've just had like a beautiful, enriched, vulnerable conversation that I truly hope has helped others, because I know it has already helped me. It has already shifted and moved, and
Mm.
oh, I would have avoided these conversations years ago, and I'm just
Yeah.
Such a balm being here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Surface. If this episode resonated, challenged you, or named something you've struggled to put words to, I'm really glad you found your way here. You'll find ways to connect, learn more, and explore further in the show notes. As always, you are good, you have always been good, and your story matters always.